All right, everybody, buckle up because we're going to look at something today that could seriously impact your wallets. And we're talking about the future of Social Security. It's a big one.
Yeah, this is huge. We're talking a potential boost to your Social Security checks and maybe even some tax relief. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah, I like the sound of that already. But what's the catch? What's this all based on?
So there's this recent claim that there are some pretty major inaccuracies in the Social Security database. We're talking about billions of dollars potentially wasted.
Billions. Okay, so like how many billions are we even talking here?
Well, think potentially 700 billion with a B. That's a lot of zeros.
Wow. All right, so before we go any further, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the updates on this developing story. And with that kind of money at stake, we're going to be following this closely. Now, where did this claim even come from in the first place?
Okay, so get this. It's Elon Musk. He's the one who kind of threw this grenade into the conversation. He's suggesting that the Social Security database has millions of people listed with ages that are well beyond normal human lifespans.
Wait, so like people living to be 200, is that what we're talking about?
Even older, we're talking like 360 years old, almost double the current world record for longest lifespan.
Okay, so now we've got a potential $700 billion windfall and people who appear to have cracked the code to immortality. Is this legit, or are we in hyperbole territory here?
That is the question, isn't it? If it's real, a $700 billion influx could change everything, future benefits, the taxes you pay on those benefits. It could even impact that 22% benefit cut they're projecting for 2034.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, that's a game changer for a lot of people. So let's say these claims are true. What could it mean for the average person who relies on Social Security?
Well, it's still early days, but we could be looking at a pretty significant increase in those average benefit checks, which would be a huge help for a lot of people who depend on Social Security to get by. And don't forget about those income taxes that some people pay on their benefits. This whole thing could even lead to discussions about completely getting rid of that tax, putting even more money back in people's pockets.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, especially those higher earners who are paying those taxes, would be thrilled about that. But I'm guessing not everyone's convinced that this is anything more than a pipe dream. So what are the concrete steps that are actually being taken right now to address this?
Well, the Department of Government Efficiency is on the case. They're launching an investigation specifically looking into illegal immigrants who are receiving benefits.
Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. Do you think focusing on illegal immigrants is really justified, given how big this problem potentially is? Or do you think it's kind of a distraction from other issues that might be going on within the system? Hit that like button and let us know what you think in the comments. We really want to hear your take on this one.
It's a thorny issue for sure. I mean, tackling fraud is super important if we're talking about protecting Social Security, but just focusing on illegal immigrants might feel like scapegoating to some people, and it might not even be getting at the root of the problem if those age discrepancies are as widespread as Musk is claiming.
It's a tough one to unpack. On the one hand, making sure that only people who are actually eligible are getting benefits is super important, if we want Social Security to stay healthy. But on the other hand, just focusing on illegal immigrants, I don't know, it could be seen as kind of a cop-out. Like maybe we're not looking at the bigger picture if those age discrepancies are really as big of a deal as Musk is saying. It definitely makes things even more complicated. And it's already a complicated issue. So beyond this investigation, are there any policy changes people are talking about making? Based on all this new information?
Oh, yeah, definitely. One idea is getting rid of the income taxes that some people pay on their Social Security benefits. That could put a lot of money back into people's pockets, thousands of dollars a year for some folks.
Okay, so who would benefit most from that change?
Mostly higher income folks. They're the ones who are currently paying those taxes.
But wouldn't that just make things even more unequal? Like the people who are already struggling to make ends meet wouldn't see any benefit from that, right?
That's a really good point. Some people are saying that getting rid of this tax would help the people who need it least, and it wouldn't do much for the people who are really counting on Social Security. It all comes down to what we think is most important when it comes to helping people out, our social safety net.
Yeah, it's a tough balance for sure. So we've got the potential for bigger benefits, maybe tax cuts for some, and a lot of back and forth about who's actually going to benefit the most from all of this. Are there any other policy changes that could impact how Social Security actually works?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of talk about changing the rules for working while you're receiving benefits. Right now, there are limits on how much you can earn before they start taking money away from your benefits. So if they loosened up those rules, it might encourage people to keep working longer, which could be good for the economy, and it could even help out the Social Security Trust Fund.
That makes sense. So more people working longer means more money for the system. But wouldn't that mostly benefit people who are healthy enough to keep working later in life? What about people who can't work for various reasons?
That's a really important thing to consider. We need to make sure that any changes to the system don't end up creating a situation where only certain people can get the most out of their benefits. Fairness and making sure everyone has access should be top priorities.
Absolutely. Speaking of changes, there's been a pretty big shakeup in leadership at the Social Security Administration,
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure. Did you hear about Michelle King? She was the acting commissioner and she just stepped down. Officially, it was because of concerns about data access, but there are some people who think it might be connected to this whole investigation into potential fraud and, mismanagement.
That's interesting. And it makes you wonder if this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Like, are we about to see a whole wave of changes coming to Social Security?
Yeah, it's definitely possible this whole thing could totally change Social Security as we know it.
Wow. So we've got this potential windfall of money, possible policy changes that could impact a ton of people, and some political drama brewing in the background. It feels like we're at a turning point for Social Security.
I think that's a really good way to put it. And while all of this is happening, it's super important for all of us to stay informed. Don't just sit back and watch. Let your elected officials know what's important to you when it comes to Social Security. Your voice really does matter. And if you're finding this conversation helpful and you want to stay updated on this whole story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to keep digging into this and keep you informed every step of the way.
So we've talked about potential benefits and the political stuff that's going on and all the possible changes coming down the pipeline. But I want to take a step back for a second and think about the bigger picture here. What does all of this tell us about the state of Social Security right now?
That's a really good question. I think it shows us how vulnerable the system is. It's been around for decades and it's been trying to adapt to a world that's changing so fast. Demographics, the economy, the digital age, it's a lot. And the fact that there could be this huge discrepancy in the data, I think it's a sign that we need to modernize things. We need to take a closer look at how the whole program is structured.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what else is going on under the surface. If this $700 billion thing is real, what else could we find if we really dug into the system?
Exactly. This could be the thing that wakes everybody up. It could force us to think not just about the data, but about whether Social Security can even survive in the long run. Can it handle all the people who are going to be retiring in the next few decades? Is there enough money to keep it going for future generations? These are big questions.
And if this does lead to a major overhaul of Social Security, what do you think should be the top priority? What changes would make the system more fair and, able to last?
I think it comes down to two things: fairness and sustainability. Any changes they make should focus on the people who need Social Security the most. We got to make sure their benefits are protected and maybe even increased, to keep up with how much everything costs. We can't leave those folks behind. And at the same time, we have to make sure the program has enough money to keep going so it can support the people who will need it in the future.
That's a great point. And it's important to remember that Social Security is more than just money. It's a promise that we made to generations of Americans. It's a safety net that people have paid into because they trusted that it would be there for them when they needed it.
Exactly. It's a promise we made to each other, to take care of each other when we need help. It's about dignity, security, knowing that we're all in this together. And that's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely. Well said. All right. So as we wrap up our look at this potential Social Security shakeup, let's go over what we've learned. We've got this potential financial windfall, a possibility of bigger benefits and tax cuts, political battles on the horizon, and the chance that the whole system could be completely overhauled.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation with a lot of moving parts, but one thing's for sure: the future of Social Security is at a crossroads.
And it's more important than ever to stay informed. Talk about it with people. Make your voices heard. The decisions that are made in the next few months and years are going to affect millions of Americans. And if you found this conversation helpful and you want to stay up to date on everything that's happening, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. We'll keep digging into this and we'll keep you informed every step of the way. Until next time, stay curious.